The black paint dripped slowly from Mama NKEM'S silver hair, thick as tar, dark as betrayal. It ran down her weathered face in cruel streams, filling the lines that poverty and sacrifice had carved over 63 years of survival. Her mouth hung open, in shock, paint coating her tongue, stealing her voice. Her hands trembled as she tried to wipe her eyes, but the viscous liquid had already begun to dry, cementing her humiliation into her skin like a curse she would never wash away. Chisholm stood 3 feet away, the empty paint bucket still gripped in her perfectly manicured hands, her chest heaving with rage and satisfaction. The golden Banana Island mansion towered behind them like a witness to cruelty, its pristine white walls mocking the darkness that had just unfolded at its gates. Then the roar of an engine shattered the moment. A black Range Rover screeched to a stop, tires smoking against marble pavement. The door flew open before the vehicle fully stopped. Kenechukwu emerged like thunder given human form, his 6'3" frame rigid with a fury that made the air vibrate. His eyes found his mother first, then the paint, then his wife holding the evidence of her evil. The world seemed to stop breathing. Some wounds fade from the skin, but humiliation stains the soul forever. 27 years earlier, Mama NKEM had been a different kind of warrior. She wore no designer clothes, owned no mansion, commanded no staff. She had only 2 weapons against the world: her back, strong enough to carry loads that would break men, and her heart, stubborn enough to believe her son would become something greater than the slum that tried to swallow them both. Onitsha Main Market knew her as the woman who never stopped moving. She sold tomatoes when tomatoes were cheap. She sold peppers when peppers were in season. She sold hope when nothing else would sell. Her stall was a shrine to survival, and young Kenechukwu did his homework on top of yam tubers, while his mother negotiated with customers who tried to cheat her because she was a woman alone. His father had died when Keen was 3. Heart attack. No warning, no life insurance, no mercy from a world that devoured the unprepared. Mama NKEM had cried for one night, then woken up the next morning with a plan. Her son would never know poverty again, even if poverty destroyed her in the process. She worked 16-hour days. She took loans from village lending circles and paid them back with interest that doubled her workload. She enrolled Keen in the best schools she could barely afford, lying to him that the fees were cheap, that everything was fine, that mothers didn't skip meals so their sons could have seconds. The accident happened on a Tuesday during rainy season. Mama NKEM was carrying a basin of oranges on her head, crossing the slippery road between market sections, when an Okada driver lost control. The motorcycle didn't hit her directly, but she twisted violently to avoid it, and something in her lower back snapped with a sound like dry wood splitting. She fell. The oranges scattered. The pain arrived like a demon. 3 surgeries later, the doctors delivered their verdict: permanent nerve damage. She would walk, but barely. She would work, but never the same. The woman who had carried the world on her back could now barely carry herself. Keen was 18, fresh into university, on a partial scholarship that Mama's sacrifice had made possible. When he came home and saw his mother limping, saw the way pain lived permanently in her eyes, something inside him hardened into diamond. He stopped sleeping. He started hustling. He sold recharge cards during the day and built websites at night. He learned real estate by volunteering with a developer who paid him in knowledge instead of cash. He learned tech by watching YouTube videos until his eyes bled from screen light. He learned survival from his mother, who never once told him to take it easy, to slow down, to accept less than extraordinary. By 25, Kene owned 3 properties in Lagos. By 28, he had launched a PropTech platform that revolutionized how Nigerians bought homes. By 32, he was worth 8 billion naira and climbing. The day he bought the Banana Island mansion, he drove straight to Onitsha without telling anyone. He walked into Mama NKEM'S small rented room where she still lived despite the money he sent her monthly, and he knelt. "Mama, you will live like royalty now." She had touched his face gently, her calloused palm rough against his cheek. "Royalty is not where you live, my son. It is how you love." He moved her to Lagos the following week. He gave her the east wing of the mansion, overlooking the lagoon. He hired nurses, cooks, drivers. He gave her everything poverty had denied her. Everything except the protection from the viper he had married. Chisom had been raised in Ikoyi by parents who confused wealth with worth. She was stunning in the way that magazines celebrate and shallow men worship. Tall, light-skinned from expensive creams, shaped by personal trainers and enhanced by surgeons who knew discretion. Her beauty was architectural, planned, executed with precision. Keene had met her at a gala for young entrepreneurs. She had laughed at his jokes, touched his arm at the right moments, asked questions about his work with the kind of focused intensity that men mistake for genuine interest. She saw not a person, but a portfolio, not a partner, but a promotion. Their wedding had been the social event of the season. 300 guests, orchestra, ice sculpture, champagne tower. Mama NKEM had worn the most expensive Ankara Keene could find, but in the wedding photos, if you looked closely, you could see she seemed small somehow, diminished, as if she sensed the mistake her son was making, but loved him too much to speak it aloud. The marriage's first crack appeared 3 months after the honeymoon, when Chisom suggested converting Mama NKEM'S wing into a home gym. She doesn't need that much space. She barely leaves her room anyway. Keene had stared at his wife as if seeing her for the first time. "That's my mother. She can have the entire mansion if she wants it." Chisom had smiled, retreated, recalculated. The direct approach wouldn't work. She needed to be surgical. The resentment grew like mold in darkness. Chisom hated how Keene consulted Mama before major business decisions. She hated how the staff loved Mama, how they brought her extra food, how they sat with her in the evenings, listening to her stories about the old days. She hated that Mama represented something Chisom could never possess, substance earned through suffering. Most of all, she hated that despite the designer clothes, the cars, the status, Chisom would always be the woman who married money, while Mama NKEM would always be the woman who made it possible. If you're reading this story, drop a comment with "Justice for Mothers" so we know who believes in honoring those who sacrificed everything. The cruelty started small, the way evil always does. A forgotten meal, an unanswered request. A conversation ended abruptly when Mama entered the room. Chisom began instructing the staff with quiet firmness. "Mama NKEM'S meals are to be simple, nothing special, just what's necessary." When the maids protested gently that Oga Keene wanted his mother treated like a queen, Chisom's eyes would harden. "I am the one here every day. I know what's best. Unless you want to look for another job." The maids fell silent. Jobs were precious. Truth was expensive. Mama NKEM noticed the changes but said nothing. She had survived worse than cold rice and silent servants. She prayed more, worried more, and tried calling her son during the day when Chisom was out. But somehow, the calls rarely went through. She didn't know that Chisom had secretly configured the mansion's network to block Mama's phone during business hours. "She's calling you 5-6 times a day," Chisom would tell Keene at night. "She's lonely and wants attention. You have a business to run, honey. You can't be her therapist." Keene, drowning in meetings and investments and the kind of pressure that comes with managing hundreds of millions, believed his wife was protecting his time. He loved his mother fiercely, but Chisom was right. He couldn't abandon his responsibilities to chat every few hours. The isolation deepened. Chisom began making Mama NKEM sit outside in the courtyard during the hottest part of the day. "You need vitamin D, Mama." The doctor recommended it. No doctor had recommended anything. But Mama Nkem, trusting and tired, would sit in the burning sun for hours while Chisholm relaxed in air-conditioned luxury inside. The staff watched in silence, their hearts breaking, their mouths sealed by fear. Then Chisholm escalated. She started making Mama wear old house dresses instead of the nice clothes Keen bought her. "These are more comfortable for you, Mama, less restrictive." She started serving Mama's meals on chip plates while everyone else ate from fine china. She started referring to Mama as your mother when speaking to staff, never by name, as if erasing her identity with linguistics. "People like her dirty the mansion," Chisholm whispered to her personal assistant one afternoon when Mama shuffled past. "Old generation, old smells, old habits. This is a modern home." The assistant's stomach turned, but she needed this job to feed 2 children in Surulere. She looked away and swallowed her disgust. Mama Nkem felt herself disappearing, not dying, but evaporating, like water left too long in the sun. She prayed harder. She smiled less. She began to believe that perhaps she was the problem, that perhaps her presence really was an embarrassment to the new life her son had built. Late at night, she would stand by her window, overlooking the lagoon, and remember the market, the struggle, the beautiful pain of purpose. She had been powerful once. She had mattered. Now she was furniture in her own son's house, decorative and dismissed. But she never blamed Keen. He was busy building empires. How could he notice what his wife hid so carefully? The papers arrived on a Friday morning, delivered by Chisholm, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mama, I need you to sign these. Just a formality. Keen asked me to handle it." Mama Nkem put on the reading glasses Kene had bought her and scanned the documents slowly. Her education had been incomplete, interrupted by poverty, but she had learned to read contracts by watching her son negotiate deals at the dinner table. The words swam into focus. Transfer of shares, property rights, beneficial ownership, legal guardianship of assets. This gives you control of Keen's companies. Chisholm's smile tightened. "It's a protection measure, Mama, in case anything happens to him." "You want him protected, don't you?" Mama Nkem set down the papers gently. "If my son wants me to sign something, he will ask me himself. He's busy, Mama. He trusts us to handle family matters. Then he can ask me when he's not busy." Chisholm's mask cracked. For a moment, pure hatred flooded her beautiful face. "You don't understand business. You're a market woman who got lucky. Sign the papers." Mama Nkem's voice stayed soft, but something ancient and immovable entered it. "I am already richer than you will ever be. My son made me a queen with love, not signatures. I will not sign." The room temperature dropped 20 degrees. Chisholm stared at this old disabled woman who dared to defy her. This relic from the past who refused to understand her place in the new order. "You'll regret this. I have survived worse threats than you, my daughter. Much worse." Chisholm left the room trembling with rage. She had planned everything perfectly. Get the signatures, consolidate control, slowly push Mama out, maybe even into a home for the elderly where she could rot in peace while Chisholm enjoyed what should have been hers from the beginning. But the old woman had refused. The obstacle remained. Fine. If Mama Nkem wanted to play matriarch, Chisholm would teach her what happens to obstacles. She would turn her into a lesson in humiliation so complete that she would beg to sign anything, leave anywhere, disappear entirely. If you're still watching, comment "Respect Mothers" and let everyone know this story touched you. Don't forget to like and share with your family. Keen received the urgent call Tuesday evening. One of his major investors was threatening to pull out of a $2 billion deal unless Keen flew to Abuja immediately for crisis talks. He packed quickly, kissed Chisholm goodbye, and promised to return in 3 days. "You'll take care of Mama?" "Of course, honey. She's in good hands." The good hands became iron fists the moment Keen's car left the compound. Chisholm waited until midnight to make sure he had boarded his flight. Then she went to the storage room and selected her weapon carefully. A large bucket of cheap black paint, the kind used for roofs and fences. Thick, permanent, unforgiving. Wednesday morning, she woke Mama Nkem at dawn. "You'll be spending the day outside today, Mama. Fresh air is good for you." "It's 6 in the morning, my daughter. It's still cold," I said outside. Something in Chisholm's voice made Mama's stomach clench. She dressed slowly, her disabled back aching from sleep, and limped out to the courtyard. The security guards exchanged worried glances but didn't interfere. Madam Chisholm was Oga's wife. They had no power here. Mama sat on the concrete bench while the sun rose, confused but obedient. Chisholm brought her no breakfast, no water, just silence and the growing heat. By noon, Mama Nkem was sweating, dizzy, frightened. By 3 p.m., she tried to stand to go inside, but Chisholm appeared in the doorway like a sentinel. "You don't move until I say you move. Please, my daughter, I need my medication. I need water." "You need to understand your place." Mama's heart hammered. She saw something in Chisholm's eyes that made her blood freeze. This wasn't discipline or tough love. This was hatred in its purest form. Chisholm disappeared inside and returned carrying the paint bucket with both hands. It was full, heavy, damning. "If you love the dirt so much, Mama, become it." Mama Nkem barely had time to raise her hands before the black paint poured over her head in a thick, cold wave. It hit her scalp with shocking force, running instantly into her eyes, her mouth, her nose. She gasped and choked, the chemical taste filling her throat, the weight of it pushing her down. She screamed, but the paint filled her mouth. She tried to wipe her face, but her hands were instantly coated. She was drowning on dry land, suffocating in humiliation and shock. Chisholm stood above her, breathing hard, phone in hand, recording everything. "Now everyone will see what you are. A stain. A dirty, embarrassing stain on my perfect life." Mama Nkem fell to her knees, blind and choking, reduced to an animal trying to survive the unthinkable. Paint pooled around her like blood. Her dignity bled out onto the mansion concrete, while her son's wife watched with something close to ecstasy. "This is what happens when you say no to me, old woman. This is what defiance costs." Mama couldn't speak, couldn't see, could barely breathe. Her disabled body trembled with shock and pain, and the worst pain of all, the understanding that her son's wife hated her enough to destroy her humanity for a signature on papers that meant nothing compared to this. Chisholm watched for another minute, then turned and went inside, leaving Mama Nkem alone in her agony, covered in evidence of evil, waiting for death or rescue, whichever came first. She got rescue, but Chisholm got something else entirely. Keen's phone buzzed during the investor meeting. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Finally, he glanced down and saw a message from Mr. Okafor, the elderly neighbor who lived 3 mansions away. "Brother Kane, I don't want to intrude, but your mother has been outside crying for hours. Alone. I think something is wrong." Keen's blood turned to ice. He stood abruptly, ignoring the confused investors. "I have to go. Emergency." He didn't explain, didn't apologize, ran to his car and drove to the airport like a man fleeing judgment. He called Mama's phone 17 times. No answer. He called the house line. No answer. He called Chisholm. "Is everything okay? Is Mama fine?" Chisholm's voice was smooth as poison. "Everything's perfect, honey. She's resting. Don't worry. Focus on your meeting." He didn't believe her, couldn't explain why, but his spirit screamed warnings his mind couldn't interpret. He caught the next flight, breaking every traffic law between the airport and Banana Island. Security guards in neighboring estates watching in shock as a Range Rover flew past their checkpoints at dangerous speeds. He reached his gate at 6 p.m. The remote took too long. He jumped out and pushed the gate open himself and saw hell. His mother on her knees in the courtyard, covered head to toe in black paint. Her face was a mask of dried chemicals. Her eyes were swollen shut. Her clothes were stiff with paint. Her dignity was murdered. Chisholm stood near the mansion entrance. The empty bucket at her feet, her expression caught between defiance and sudden terror because she hadn't expected him home for 2 more days. Keen's roar shattered every window in his soul. "Are you insane? That's my mother!" He ran to Mama Nkem, dropping his briefcase, his phone, his composure. He tore off his suit jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders, pulling her against his chest, his own clothes instantly ruined by paint that stank like betrayal. "Mama, I'm here! I'm here! Oh God, Mama, what did she do to you?" Mama Nkem sobbed against his chest, unable to speak, unable to see, able only to cling to her son like a drowning woman grabbing the last piece of wood in a shipwreck. Keen looked up at his wife. When their eyes met, Chisholm saw her future collapse. She tried to run. He caught her by the arm. "Don't. You! Move!" His voice was quiet now, which made it infinitely more terrifying than his scream. He pulled out his phone with his free hand and called security. "Call the police. Tell them we have an assault in progress. Then pull every piece of footage from the last 72 hours. Every camera, every angle, everything." Chisholm's expensive mask shattered completely. "She attacked me first. She slipped." The paint was an accident. Keen's laugh was the sound of sanity breaking. "You're going to lie? To me? About my mother? After this?" He let her go like she was contaminated. She stumbled backward, paint on her hands, evil on her face, desperation leaking from every pore. Within 20 minutes, the police arrived. Within an hour, the security footage was compiled. 72 hours of systematic torture. Mama locked outside in the sun. Meals withheld, verbal abuse, isolation, and finally the paint attack, captured in high-definition horror from 3 different angles, with audio of Chisholm's voice explaining exactly why she was doing it. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, unforgivable. They arrested her at 8 p.m. while she tried to pack a bag. The handcuffs closed around her wrists like fate itself, cold and permanent. Drop a comment saying, "Paint of shame if you believe evil people must face consequences." Share this story with everyone who needs to hear it. The courtroom was packed 3 weeks later. The case had gone viral. Billionaire's wife tortures disabled mother-in-law. The media had nicknamed her the Paint Demon. Her family hired the best lawyers oil money could buy, but no lawyer could defend against video evidence of evil. The prosecutor played the footage for the judge in courtroom. Strong men wept. Women gasped. The judge, a 60-year-old mother of 4, removed her glasses and closed her eyes as if she could unsee what had been witnessed. When the video ended, the silence in the courtroom was absolute. Chisholm's lawyer stood and tried strategy after strategy. Mental breakdown, temporary insanity, marital stress, cultural misunderstanding. Every excuse collapsed under the weight of premeditation. The footage showed planning. The audio revealed intent. The witnesses, servants who finally found courage, testified to months of escalating abuse. Chisholm herself took the stand, wearing a simple dress and makeup designed to evoke sympathy. She cried beautifully. She claimed confusion. She begged forgiveness. Then the prosecutor asked one question that destroyed everything. Did you, or did you not, tell the victim that she was a stain on your perfect life while pouring paint on her? Silence. Did you, or did you not, record the assault on your phone with the intention of using it as blackmail to force her to sign legal documents transferring control of your husband's assets? The lawyer objected. The judge overruled. The courtroom waited. Chisholm had no answer that wouldn't confirm her evil. The judge delivered the verdict with a voice that carried the weight of every mother who had ever been disrespected, dismissed, destroyed. You assaulted a disabled elderly woman in your care. You tortured her systematically for weeks. You weaponized her vulnerability and her love for her son. You attempted to steal through humiliation what you could not earn through character. This court finds you guilty of aggravated assault, elder abuse, disability endangerment, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Chisholm's beautiful face crumbled. Her lawyer gripped her shoulder. Her mother wailed from the gallery. The standard sentence is 10 years. However, I am reducing it to 7 based on lack of prior criminal record. But make no mistake, you will serve every day of those 7 years in Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison, where perhaps you will learn what it means to have your dignity stripped away in a place with no designer clothes, no status, no escape. 7 years. Chisholm's scream echoed through the courthouse like the sound of consequences finally arriving. But then something remarkable happened. Mama Nkem stood, leaning on Keen's arm for support, paint stains still faintly visible in her hairline despite weeks of treatment. She looked at the judge with eyes that had survived worse than evil daughters-in-law. "Your Honor, I ask for mercy." The courtroom gasped. Keen stared at his mother in disbelief. "My son must live with himself after this. I do not want him carrying the weight of his wife's maximum punishment. Please, reduce her sentence. Let her serve 5 years. Let my son's heart have room for peace." The judge studied Mama Nkem for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Your Grace humbles this court. 5 years, not 1 day less." Chisholm was led away in handcuffs, still beautiful, still broken, still unable to comprehend how she had lost everything by trying to take what was never hers. Mama Nkem turned to her son and touched his face. "Royalty is not built on what stands above the ground, my child. It is what stands firm inside your heart." Keen sold 2 of his properties and donated the proceeds to create something unprecedented, the Paint of Shame Foundation, dedicated to protecting abused mothers and elderly women from family members who saw them as obstacles instead of origins. The foundation provided legal aid, safe houses, counseling, and most importantly, visibility. Mama Nkem's story became a rallying cry. Women across Nigeria began reporting elder abuse that had been hidden for generations. Daughters-in-law who had suffered in silence found their voices. Mothers who had been forgotten found sanctuary. Keen visited his wife once in prison, not out of love, but out of closure. She sat across from him in the visiting room wearing a faded uniform, her beauty dimmed by fluorescent lights and consequences. "I'm sorry." Her voice was small, real, too late. "So am I. I'm sorry I didn't see who you were. I'm sorry I brought you into my mother's life." He stood to leave. She grabbed his hand through the metal table. "Will you wait for me? 5 years isn't forever." He pulled his hand away gently. "Yes, it is. Goodbye, Chisholm." He walked out of that prison and never looked back. Mama Nkem recovered slowly. The paint stains eventually faded from her skin. The nightmares took longer. But surrounded by her son's constant love and the knowledge that her suffering had sparked a movement to protect thousands of other mothers, she found something more valuable than revenge. She found purpose, rebuilt from pain. On the 1-year anniversary of the paint attack, Keen threw a celebration at the foundation's new shelter. 50 mothers who had been rescued from abusive situations attended. They sang. They prayed. They honored Mama Nkem, who sat in the center of them all, wearing a beautiful purple dress, her silver hair styled perfectly, her dignity restored and unbreakable. A reporter asked her if she regretted not asking for the maximum sentence. Mama smiled. "Revenge is paint that stains your own hands. Forgiveness is the water that washes everyone clean." 3 years later, Chisholm was released early for good behavior. She left Kirikiri thin, humble, carrying a box of her few possessions and the weight of lessons learned through suffering. Her family had abandoned her. Her friends had forgotten her. Her beauty had faded under prison fluorescent and the absence of luxury. She never tried to contact Keen. She moved to a small flat in Festock and got a job teaching underprivileged children to read. It wasn't redemption, but it was a start. She would spend the rest of her life working to balance scales she had tipped so violently toward evil. Keene eventually remarried, this time to a pediatrician named Adana, who brought Mom and Kem breakfast in bed every Sunday and called her my second mother without being asked. Their wedding was small, intimate, real. Mama and Kem lived another 20 beautiful years, surrounded by grandchildren who never knew hunger, pain, or the fear that love would be used as a weapon. She died peacefully in her sleep at 83, in the same mansion where she had once been tortured, in a room filled with flowers and family, and the absolute knowledge that she had won the war that mattered most, the battle for dignity. At her funeral, Keene read from a letter she had written him years earlier, to be opened after her death. My son, some people will try to paint you with their bitterness. Some will pour their shame onto your head and call it discipline. When this happens, remember, stains fade from skin, but the heart never forgets who dirtied it or who washed it clean. Be the water, my child. Always be the water. 5,000 women attended her funeral, women she had never met, but whose lives had been saved by the foundation built from her humiliation. They wore purple in her honor. They sang hymns she had loved. They renamed the foundation Mama and Kem's Grace so that her name would outlive every person who had ever tried to diminish her. Comment Mama and Kem's Grace if this story touched your heart. Like, share, and subscribe so more people can learn the power of honoring mothers. Drop a if you believe in justice and forgiveness. Some stains wash off skin with soap and water and the passage of time, but the heart never forgets who dirtied it with evil or who cleansed it with love. The paint eventually disappeared from Mama and Kem's body, but the memory of her son running to save her, of justice finding her tormentor, of grace flowing from her own lips toward the woman who had tried to destroy her, those memories stained the world with something stronger than hatred. They stained it with hope. And hope, unlike paint, never washes away. If you believe in protecting mothers, drop respect in the comments. Share this story with your family and remind them, royalty is not where you live, but how you love.